So Raven's done their patch notes again on Twitter. It says, heads up, tomorrow morning's Warzone update will contain various weapon and attachment adjustments. Here's an early look at the patch notes. So we're going to get them a little bit early instead of them dropping right as the update goes live. So what we're going to look at here is the assault rifle. So we have the AK-47 gun kick adjusted. We are reassessing and polishing the gun kick of the AK-47 to behave more closely to other 7.62 caliber weapon. I feel like the recoil is kind of high on this weapon. It is mostly down like a lot of the weapons, so we'll kind of see what that actually means. If there'll be a little bit more side to side wobble, so it'll be harder to use, and that could kill the long range AK-47 when it comes to Cold War. But will it still be viable as sniper support? That one is a wait and see. The FARA, they actually gave it a couple nerfs and a couple buffs. So the maximum damage, which is the close range damage, went from 29 down to 25, which does impact the number of shots to kill. The minimum damage decreased, so this is the long range damage, went from 25 down to 23. But they also went and modified the headshot multiplier from 1.35 up to 1.56. So now, even though they lowered the damage, the headshot damage didn't change, just the multiplier. But obviously, since they lowered it, they still kept the headshot value essentially the same. Next shot multiplier, they went from 1 to 1.2, which essentially is what's made the Krig so viable, is it has that upper chest multiplier, also known as the neck, above the chest plate. That is also a hitbox that gives you more damage. And the upper torso went from 1 to 1.1. FAR 83 is forgiving in addition to sporting a relatively fast and consistent time to kill at both of its damage ranges, which we feel is exacerbated by how easy it is to control. We are shifting some of the FARA's 83 power into locational multipliers and align its TTK values more closely with other weapons that require similar level of skill. So obviously they're trying to get that in line because it didn't have a lot of recoil. You could run no underbarrel and you still be fine with that thing. When it comes to the Krig 6, we have recoil increased and next shot multiplier gone from 1.3 down to 1.1. And this is pretty significant on how it's going to impact the overall game, because now, even if it is a little bit harder to use, the damage is also doing less. So this might actually be a true shift away from the Krig, which I 100% agree with. I felt like it's way too easy to use. When it comes to QBZ, recoil increased slightly and recoil dampening enabled. We have a vision of where we would like to see the easiest to control long-range weapons to lie on the TTK spectrum. We believe we are close. They are definitely getting close compared to what Modern Warfare did last year, but not quite there. In wake of these weapon changes, the long-range engagement space may be succeeded by the QBZ. We'll be monitoring its performance over the coming weeks to ensure its performance meets our expectations. So they kind of want everything in balance where you could use the Krig, the FARA, and the QBZ, and those would be all your no recoil long range options. And those would also fit in with potentially if the Kilo ever got a buff, the Grau, M4 for some people, where you're in there and you have some options. Here's the ones that surprised me. The OTS got a nerf. It's going to have more recoil. It says slightly, so not a huge difference. Maximum damage up close went from 34 to 31. Minimum went from 20 to 21. So that one actually got a buff for its long range. And then headshot went from 135 to 1.52. They've essentially done the same thing. The headshot damage is essentially the same. And then they lowered the maximum up close chest and limb damage without impacting the headshot. And then the neck multiplier went from 135 to 1. So this is going to make it significantly less consistent. So part of what makes the OTS a powerhouse was how easily it could achieve its reduced time to kill. This is why it was broken and people were using it. With a shared headshot and neck multiplier, headshots were nearly twice as easy as a hit, making the OTS remarkably forgiving for a weapon and with extraordinary TTK potential. These changes will require more precision, so you're going to have to require more headshots, which also means the damage per mag is really going to come into play. And I think people are going to start to veer away from the OTS, but only time will tell. It comes to the Tech 9. It says the maximum damage decreased from 26 to 24. The minimum decreased from 24 to 22. And this is the base one. And we'll have to kind of see how this actually impacts the full auto, because the full auto, burst, and semi-auto all have different damage values and multipliers. So we'll see kind of what happens with that. And then it says the light machine gun. So light machine gun alpha, which should be the stoner, recoil adjusted, gun kick adjusted. So this is, when it says gun kick, that's visual recoil, I think they're referring to. And then recoil is actual recoil, what the gun actually does. Raise and interrupt time increased from 0.8 to 1. So now the actual raise time when you swap weapons, you're more penalized. So you definitely going to want to run amped if you're going to be running this specific weapon. Light machine gun outfit has a desirable traits. Its recoil, gun kick, and handling were more than one might expect from a 5.56 assault rifle rather than LMG. So it was way too easy to use. These added LMG downsides will have players thinking twice before bringing an LMG into an AR fight because that mobility can be more unforgiving. Tactical rifles, this is where I'm a little confused. I don't know what they're trying to do, but they are trying to reduce the recoil. Hopefully it gets to a point where these things are viable because they actually went after the AUG, Cold War AUG, and the M16, which we'll see. Increased recoil decreased slightly. An overarching goal for us is to bring all weapons to be viable. While burst weapons may not be for everyone, we feel it is important that we support and cultivate a wide variety of playstyles, skill levels. So basically you can include pretty much any weapon type you want, which is an admirable goal. Like if they can accomplish it, very, very nice. Then we also have barrels, tactical rifles. They actually buffed the titanium, which gives you the best rate of fire. And then rapid fire, it also got buffed slightly, marginally. So it'll fire faster and it has less recoil. M16 didn't get a change on the recoil. So pretty interesting. All these will take place at the 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. EST update that goes live on the 15th. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this will actually impact the TTK. So here's pretty much the changes that take place on the FARA and the OTS. You can see the values in yellow are essentially what changed on these individual weapons in terms of damage value. They modified the chest and the stomach so that we get a little bit more damage with the chest than we did the stomach, but overall the still net is less than that we had before this update. And then the headshot ends up being the exact same number. Same thing that we're seeing here, 23, 25, we're all solid, but this changes these numbers down here. So before you didn't need to do anything to get this 9-shot to kill. Now you need to get a headshot in the mix with this 27 damage, which is kind of unfortunate. And then to get the 3-shot, still the same, and 6, that didn't change the other lower TTKs, and this is for up close. So you'll reliably get a slower TTK of 684, which means the floor FARA and then the FARA as a sniper support becomes a lot less viable if you were using it for that. When it comes to the long range, you can see that the TTK is closer to 750 now. If you end up getting 9 chest shots, which is unless not probable, you might get a headshot in the mix that actually makes it so you don't need as many. 684 is still pretty reliable, but before that was the guaranteed TTK, so it'll feel a little bit slower even though they gave it a little bit more of a next shot damage. I don't think that's going to really factor into a lot of gunfights, especially if they're modifying the recoil and things like that of other weapons. We'll see what eventually people come down, but now it's kind of a head-to-head race with the Krig, QBZ, FARA. What is the top long-range option with the least amount of recoil with the best TTK? Because they made a significant change here for the FARA, which was kind of coming out ahead. Obviously, they kind of did some things with the stoner, just made it hard to use. We won't know how hard it is to use because sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, it made recoil harder, but like they legitimately do not touch the weapon. The OTS, it went from like top dog, where now you need to get 2 chest shots instead of 3, and 2 and a headshot to get the 8-shot to kill. You can see that pretty clear there. So before you only needed 3 chest or stomach shots to get a 500 TTK essentially, which is pretty good. Now to get a 500 TTK, you need 1 headshot in the mix. So they're forcing you to have that. Otherwise your TTK will still be pretty competitive, but you'll likely get outgunned by other things like the Bullfrog all of a sudden kind of steps up. And the Bullfrog is a huge contender for the top dog, along with the Mac 10, which has relatively low recoil, easy to use. Damage per mag can be an issue for some of these guns. The Tech 9 could be great as an SMG. Obviously, shotguns are at play. There's a lot of variables here, but this is kind of how it changes that. Let's just want to give you guys a heads up so you guys are aware of it when this change goes through. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learn something new. If you did, please do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, double check, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.